Welcome to Q2Q, where today we're going to dive into the world of pop rock and musical theater. I'm Jonathan Zalaski.
And I'm Ariane DeSerbo. Wait, Jonathan, in honor of us talking about pop rock today, I was inspired to go out and get some pop rocks.
I love it. Oh my gosh. All right, let's discuss. When it comes to musical theater and pop rock world, you may think there's a great divide between these two styles. However, they have more in common than you might think.
Right. For example, in the 1920s, there were over 250 shows on Broadway, and most of them used popular standards of the day. Slap a storyline on them, and bam, you have a brand new musical.
Fast forward to today, where we have such artists like Tina Turner, Carole King, Berry Gordy Jr., Alanis Morissette, David Bowie, U2, The Who, Green Day, who have all had their turn on the Broadway stage.
Now, Jonathan, let me ask you, why? Why is there this need to put pop stars up and down 42nd Street? This clearly isn't a trend, as we've seen popular artists being utilized on Broadway for over a century now, but maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, well, when there's a difference in style and musical interests, there's a difference in demographic. Not everybody is rushing to see Golden Age pieces anymore. So to create a new appeal and to appeal to these new audiences, to reach the new demographic, the use of popular artists' work in musical theater was a clever stunt designed to lure an audience who wouldn't normally attend the theater. Of course, it also had the reverse effect of introducing theater fans to popular music they otherwise might not have intentionally listened to. When familiar material is front and center in the spotlight, you've created a new way for people to identify with the theater, and you've opened doors into the pop rock world.
And there are plenty of ways to do this. I mean, just look at all the musicals that have adopted this, as you say, stunt, to not only feature these artists in a new light, but to cross the mediums and broaden the reach. There's All Shook Up, Motown, Rock of Ages,
Cher, Tina, Beautiful, Jagged Little Pill,
even SpongeBob,
Moulin Rouge,
American Idiot,
The Who's Tommy.
and look at all of Elton John's work.
All leading up to what we believe may be the prime example of the convergence of pop rock and musical theater.
All of these titles, recognizable as they are, have all achieved Broadway stardom in their own ways, a variety of ways, starting with the jukebox musical. So, Jonathan, what is specifically a jukebox musical?
A jukebox musical is a musical written using found material. A book writer will create a storyline around music that has already been written for the sake of contextualizing pop rock pieces in the theater.
So this applies to shows like American Idiot, Motown, Rock of Ages, and many productions of Mamma Mia. They're everywhere, especially at the community and regional theater level. It's because, you know why? People love ABBA. They love their music, and Mamma Mia is just another way for people to experience the music they know already and love. Of course, it's going to be a smash.
Right, and most recently, Moulin Rouge, which features over 70 songs spanning decades of pop music arranged and remixed into a glorious musical mashup extravaganza, which debuted at #1 on the Billboard Broadway Cast Album Chart. Now, think of what a project like Moulin Rouge does for both industries, the music industry in general and the theater industry. When Moulin Rouge first opened, until it was nearly impossible to get a ticket. I mean, who wouldn't want to see the most comprehensive pop rock musical on Broadway? And who wouldn't leave with an appreciation for the 161, yes, artists whose work they just experienced? It summed up in a 2-hour thrill ride. I mean, this work is a total integration of style, which is more than visually appealing or even audibly appealing. It's generating appreciation for two different worlds in a unique way.
Not to mention their #1 Billboard listing put those 161 artists right at the top as well. Like, what a brilliant way to skyrocket intrigue for all involved.
Seriously. I want to shift gears to focus on a concept musical discussion.
Okay.
How concept musicals and the pop rock world meet. Because it's so often assumed that shows like The Who's Tommy is a jukebox musical. No. Tommy is different, as The Who set out to create a concept album which tells one story from start to finish, with the intent of it being visually interpreted on the stage or screen someday. So the entirety of the album was simply then represented on stage, instead of what we see with jukebox musicals, taking pop pieces from various sources, forcing a storyline into the gaps, and calling it a show. Granted, Tommy has only had the one Broadway run so far. But for 2 years in the mid-1990s, Broadway brought new life to Tommy and vice versa.
That show grossed $54 million, and over 1 million people walked out of the St. James Theater singing "Sensation." How often do we see that?
Jagged Little Pill offers a similar example. Alanis Morissette's work is experiencing a resurgence because of her Broadway status, which increases her work's value across the board. She may never have intended for her concept album to someday turn into a Broadway musical, but it's hard to disagree with statistics that say that this is the kind of show that people want to see.
Since its opening in November 2019, up until COVID shut down Broadway, the show met at least 92% audience capacity each week and grossed $18 million in the 20 weeks it was open.
So personally, I never, not once, sat down and listened to the original Jagged Little Pill album. At least to my knowledge. I never did it purposely. Until Rachel Reiner from the Broadway League brought us and our Business for Broadway class at MMC to see the musical representation of the album. And if you think I didn't listen to the original album nonstop afterward, you're wrong.
I appreciate you using the term representation for this production instead of interpretation. I think it's important to mention that the vocal style of pop rock itself is not altered. It's just on Broadway. Like, we see that with Adrienne Warren, who sounds just like Tina Turner, and Stephanie J. Block trying to sound exactly the way that Cher sounds, and Sarah Bareilles singing as herself in her Star Turn-In Waitress. Jessie Mueller sounding like Carole King, and even the David Bowie song in SpongeBob is made to sound like David Bowie's singing.
Right. And when we pay tribute to these artists in such a way where we don't change how these pieces are supposed to sound for the sake of the stage, we're truly crediting their work and acknowledging the original artists' contributions to music culture in a more than respectable way.
I mean, every time I turn around, I feel as if there's a new bio-musical with a pop rock score in the works.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned just recently, there was Cher, Tina, Donna Summer the musical, On Your Feet, not to mention original favorites like Jersey Boys.
Right, and there's talk of the Michael Jackson musical and the Neil Diamond story coming to Broadway when it's safe to return. And of course, let's not forget one of the most prominent bio-musicals of them all.
Beautiful. The Carole King story. I mean, come on. The very musical from the artist that made the earth move under our feet. The artist who has remained an absolute musical icon for over 50 years. Who not only made a massive imprint on the music industry with her own voice, but became the voice as a writer and lyricist for so many others. this is all explored in Beautiful. This was brilliant theater. It was a brilliant theater stunt, not only for Carol's benefit and her following, but also for Broadway.
The Broadway run of Beautiful had a run that lasted just shy of 4 years, amassed over $270 million, and brought 2.2 million soft rock fans into a common space to celebrate the work of a living legend. I mean, not so many artists are so fortunate to enjoy this kind of success, which is such a credit to the genius that was merging the pop rock world with musical theater to create a hit that, again, when it's safe to return, will continue to bring the story to those who want to hear it on tour. Talk about an impressive crossover. Beautiful's it.
Right, so we've covered pop rock artists whose work is utilized on Broadway in jukebox musicals. You know, take all their stuff, slap a storyline on it. Artists whose concept work is realized on Broadway, like Tommy, where they wrote it with a storyline in mind already, and artists whose life stories appear to us in musical theater format using their work, like Beautiful. So what about pop rock artists who have found success writing specifically for Broadway? I mean, like Hamilton, for example, taking a story that might be old and dusty off the shelf and putting hip hop and R&B on it and mixing up the casting to be multiracial. So then all of a sudden you have a fresh new look and a fresh new take that reaches a whole new audience of young theater goers and schools going on field trips and you name it, bringing history basically to Broadway and making it hip.
Yeah, I mean, that's another benefit of using pop rock in musical theater. And then there's superstars like Cyndi Lauper, U2, Sir Elton John, Sarah Bareilles, amongst others, having notable Broadway careers. I mean, it's not like Elton John having written the music for Lion King helped its 24-year success or anything. I mean, we already love their music, so who wouldn't want to see more of their work on stage? This is the question we are seeing being asked more and more lately by leading producers who are attracting both pop rock and theater fans to the Broadway box.
We've seen these artists thrive when working in their own element, and when asked to write a Broadway score, these pop rock icons have undoubtedly delivered. I mean, think of what they've offered us. The aforementioned Lion King, Aida, Billy Elliot, Kinky Boots, Spider-Man.
I mean, these titles have all been popularized because they came from pop rock stardom. It's no shock that any of their projects have been massive successes, not only here in the US, but also globally. But without further ado, and as if you don't already know, our choice for the ultimate pop rock musical theater stunt combo, drum roll please. Waitress!
Waitress!
Who knew this would be the result? I honestly didn't expect to land on Waitress as our prime example of a pop rock MT crossover, but it was yet another perfectly orchestrated stunt.
Not only do you have a legitimate superstar at the helm, writing the music for an already much loved story, as Waitress is a popular film from 2007, but you have a writer who boosted her own image as a pop rock artist while boosting the theater industry. Every single time it was announced that Sarah Bareilles would once again appear in her own show, millions of dollars would flood the box office the same day.
Right, we've seen pop artists write for the stage before, but it's such a rare treat that they perform their own material for us in their shows and become truly representative of the crossover we've discussed this whole time.
This added element pushed Waitress just far enough ahead of the others to make it that much more of an impressive pop rock musical theater feat?
Overall, there's an important connection here. While from a producing standpoint, the original intent of a pop rock musical is to generate income, this work is doing so much more for music and musical theater fans alike.
Yeah, it's created a world in which we are bringing theater and popular music together for the sake of the performer and for those that they intend to reach. And by doing this, the industry is broadening that reach and increasing the opportunity for new connections, which in turn broadens the well-being of either industry.
We're interested in the business of maximizing art forms. We've experienced a situation where artists have taken audible elements and added visuals and a complete story for the benefit of the radio listener and the theater goer to create an interconnected world where we bridge the once perceived divide of the pop rock and musical theater gap.
Woohoo!
Thank you for joining us on our trip through pop rock and musical theater. Once again, I'm Jonathan Zalaski.
And I'm Ariane DeServo.
And this has been Q2Q.
Oh my gosh.